This is Entrepreneurs Get Visible, the podcast for people who want more impact, influence, and income. I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and I'll be sharing with you proven methods from leading entrepreneurs that help you get visible as an authority in your field. Because anything's possible when you get visible. Hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Anna Parker-Naples, and you are listening, as you might have realised, to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. And in this podcast, we talk about everything you need to know as someone who is an entrepreneur or a coach or an expert in their field who wants to stand out, get visible, get noticed, and bring in more clients. And today we are continuing with our Podcasting for Business series. I am founder of the podcast membership. We have now helped over 100 people to launch chart-topping podcasts around the world over the last 7 months since we launched. And I'm also CEO of my very own podcast production agency. So if you know that you don't just want to create your podcast, you aren't interested in all the tech stuff, we can handle that and take over for you. So today we're going to be looking at how to make the most of your show notes for your podcast. But before we go into that, I want to let you know that I am opening the doors to my mastermind. Now, this mastermind is a 12-month program and it is intensive. It is not just somewhere where you turn up and you are taught and you are trained, but this is a very intimate, closed experience. And I am passionate about helping people to step up for themselves, to help them rise in this online space, because there is tremendous potential. There is the potential to be exceptional, to create exceptional content, to get exceptional results. But I don't like to work with people who do not take action. I like to work with those go-getters who not only want it to happen, but are prepared to put in the work. And I'm really passionate about bringing together the right people in the right environment, because I believe that together we're stronger, but you've got to have the right mix. And if you know that right now, you are ambitious, driven, passionate, but you want to scale even further. You want to take your business to the next level. Then this mastermind could well be for you. It is by application and invite only. But if you've been struggling for a while to really see how you can develop and grow your business, and perhaps you're feeling a bit disconnected, like you don't have the right kinds of people around you, a mastermind can be an incredibly powerful way to bring in those associations and that support, which is why, as I said, it's by application and invite only. So if you are interested in applying, then I would like to welcome you and invite you to jump on a call with me where we can discuss whether we would be a good fit, whether you would be the right kind of person to fill one of those spots in my mastermind. So if you'd like to find out more about that, head over to annaparkernaples.co.uk/mastermind, and you'll be able to find everything there about my Action Takers Mastermind. And it's very deliberately named that way because I do not want people who are not prepared to put in the work. I want people who understand that these things don't happen by accident. They happen because you work it. And I want you to understand that you put the groundwork in now for the rewards not so far away. So if that sounds like you, and you enjoy my content and you see that I really do give, even on my show, imagine what that's like in a closed environment where you get my eyes and ears on your business every single week. It is a weekly participation mastermind, which in itself has so much potential for you to feel supported for the next 12 months to completely accelerate your growth. So go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/mastermind. Okay, on with the podcasting for business segment of this show. We're talking today about how to make the most of your show notes. And before we go into that, if perhaps you've not even started your podcast or don't know too much about podcasts at the moment, I just want to address with you what I'm talking about. So show notes, well, what are they for? And where do they live? And often when people refer to show notes of a podcast, there's two things that they really mean. So show notes can be on the podcast itself, whichever app you are listening to a podcast in. If you click on that particular episode, there are usually some notes and resources and links attached to the bottom of that show where you could get further helpful resources. And there might be links to either the guest that's been on and something they're promoting, maybe their lead magnet or their freebie, or there might be some information about the host's further content that you could dive into that would support that episode. The other thing that show notes are, the other place they are placed is potentially sometimes on the podcast host's website or the website that is specific for that show, because they could be two different things. And the show notes on the website can sometimes be an exact copy of what is on the podcast directory, and they can also be much more intensive. And that comes down to the host's preference, the reason that they're doing the show in the first place, and the purpose of those show notes. What are they there for? And there are various things that they can be used for. If they are on your website, they're very good for driving traffic, driving those listeners, driving those people who are interested in what you're talking about to come over to your website so that you can capture their details in some way. So either you could, if you drove them to your website page that hosted your podcast, you could potentially have some Facebook pixels on your website, and then you'd be able to retarget them later on when you are selling or promoting, for example. So driving them to your website, it becomes really useful. The show note content itself could be that it becomes a valuable resource that you are referring to throughout your episodes. It could be that if people have a different learning preference, for example, they like to read as well as to listen, or maybe they've heard your episode while they're out running, but there's one particular thing that you've said that they want to get more information about. Being able to see that on the show notes and kind of scan them to see where was that point in the episode, what was the detail that was given there, and particularly any links that were mentioned. This is really important on your show notes. Any links that you're referring to, URLs, websites, books, mentioned throughout your content. If you have that on your show notes, they become an incredibly useful resource. The other thing then, if you are consciously using your show to bring people into your funnel, so bring people into your website, which why wouldn't you? Because it's really important for that. If you are consciously doing that, you want to make sure that you have got opportunities for coming into your freebie, your lead magnet, your ebook, whatever it is, so that you have the opportunity to keep people warm, to nurture them, to contact them whenever you like without having that kind of guessing game as to will they tune into that particular podcast episode. You can drive people to your sequences, your nurture sequences, to warm them up and take them from just being a listener to being an active fan and loyal follower of you across your other platforms as well. In terms of SEO, search engine optimization, podcasts and show notes are becoming even more powerful. So I've talked before on this podcast that the podcast directories such as Apple, Google and Spotify are very useful in terms of search engine searches anyway. But when you add in the element of what show notes can do for you on your website and help you to, when you're delivering regular content, to then flesh out the keynotes on your website over and over and over again, because if you're talking about your topic of influence, your topic of choice, having that domain ranking, that search engine ranking is really important. And I'm not going to delve too much into a very dry topic of SEO, but show notes are incredibly useful for that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, there are very different ways that you could put your show notes together. When I first started off podcasting several years ago, I actually didn't bother because I didn't understand the merit or the value of them. I didn't really understand from a business perspective what I was doing. So all I would do is each week I would house on a blog page the audio version of my podcast episode, and that would be it. So I'd have the title and the audio track. However, I was missing a trick, because not only will people go and find out information if they think that there's something of detail in the show notes, but I was also missing that opportunity to upsell and bring people into my funnel. So some people choose with their show notes to have just a couple of links that might have been mentioned, or they choose to have nothing, or they choose to have abbreviated notes, but still quite detailed. Or they might choose to have a fully transcribed interview or discussion. or whatever they've talked about as a solo host. Now, that is a style preference to some extent. And I think more and more people are having fully transcribed shows, and that's because some of the technology is rapidly changing. If you're looking at getting your show transcribed, there are tools such as otter.ai, so otter as in the animal, and there is also Searchy, which is a brilliant tool for any audio or video content that can be fully transcribed really easily and be searched, which you could host on your website. So you have lots of choices. And one of the things that I'm seeing as podcast companies and podcast technologies are developing is that there are more and more apps and integrations and plugins that are offering timestamps to be created automatically in your show notes. And what that would mean is, say at 4 minutes, 32 seconds, I had talked about a particular topic. You would be able to either search that, or I would be able to flag it up in the show notes, and it would automatically come up with a link to click you. So when you clicked on it, you would be taken to that exact spot in the audio. That's really important as a user experience, as a listener experience. Now, if you are going to have show notes on your website, and I think if you're doing your podcast for a business purpose, why wouldn't you? There are some great plugins that I'm going to recommend you go and check out if you have a wordpress.org website. So not a wordpress.com, that's slightly different, a wordpress.org website. The first one is Simple Podcast Press. This enables you, every time your show has been uploaded to your host, so my host is Libsyn, and it then goes live on Apple Podcasts, automatically Simple Podcast Press plugin can take that particular episode and turn it into a blog post of its own, complete with the audio, complete with the show notes that you put into the host, complete with the imagery for that particular episode if you set it in that way. So without you having to do any extra work other than upload to Libsyn, as you would be doing anyway, or your host of preference, and you having downloaded once and installed this plugin on your wordpress.org website just once, you would then be able to pull in every single episode onto your website. That's really powerful when we talk about that search engine optimization. The other one that I would recommend is an app by Pat Flynn. It used to be called the Smart Podcast Player. It's now called Fusebox. And again, they are developing this technology for the timestamps and refining it all of the time. And what they can do is allow you different types of player on different parts of your website that look very sleek and very polished. And actually, if you go over to my website, Parker-Naples.co.uk, you'll see that I use both of these, both the Fusebox and Simple Podcast Press, to get my podcast content out there quickly and easily. But the key thing is you can make your show notes completely keyword optimized, which helps with your rankings, which helps with your positioning. But the key thing is it's a completely and utterly helpful resource for your listener. So why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you, when it's not that hard and it's not that complicated, take those extra steps to make your podcast a useful, valuable, free resource so that you can bring people into your funnel, so that you can warm them up, nurture them, and show them that what you deliver is excellent, so that they become much more trusting of you. And when it comes to them deciding to make a purchase in your direction, they've already made that decision way before because of the quality of the content and the depth of your content. So I hope you found that interesting today on how to make the most of your show notes. And I'm just going to wrap up here by reminding you that if you know you really want to accelerate your business, if you know you want massive audience growth, if you know you want to not only stand out from the crowd, but have that impact in your income, then make sure that you go and check out my mastermind while the doors are open. It's at annaparkernaples.co.uk/mastermind. And I'd love to invite you on a call. I'm only having a handful of calls, so you do have to apply to see if we would be a great fit for me to help you take your business and help you rise. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneurs Get Visible. To get your free checklist on how to raise your profile and to find out about our community, go to annaparkernaples.co.uk/get visible.